Match number 50, and it is crunch time. West Indies did themselves a favour in Barbados. Can they now get the job done in Antigua against South Africa? A win here, and the West Indies will be through to the semi-finals. We build up to the last of the Super 8 Group 2 games on Maruti Suzuki Arena. Presents ESPN Cricinfo Timeout, powered by Dish TV Watcho, in the company of Ian Bishop. Bish, thank you so much for your time. Big result for West Indies against USA. Now coming to this next game, we saw one change at the top of the order with Shea Hope coming in for Brandon King. Brandon King is out of the tournament and Kyle Mayers has linked up with the squad. Do you see any chances of getting Kyle Mayers in for Johnson Charles potentially?
I'm not absolutely sure, and the reason I have doubts is that at least Shea Hope had the game against Afghanistan to try to prime himself for tonight's outcome. Kyle Mayers last played just before the World Cup started against South Africa. I don't know if he's had any game time at domestic level over the last couple of weeks. So I would assume it's perhaps too much of a risk to bring Kyle Mayers in straight away.
So in that case, a lot of the onus on Johnson Charles to pick up the slack. He's not had the best of times at this World Cup.
No, he would have wanted to have been more fluent. He had a couple of 40s, albeit the last one at a slower pace. So he hasn't found his fluency. But I'd understand really if they gave him another outing in a game against South Africa that is also, I would think, a must win, right? And he had 100 against them last year at Centurion Supersport Park in South Africa. So a couple of those things, given that he's played all series so far, might weigh in his favor.
A game of this magnitude, you'd imagine, brings with it a lot of the onus on the big hitting muscle of the West Indian batting order. We've seen Nicholas Pooran deliver a few times. Andre Russell, in the couple of big games against New Zealand and England, has fallen earlier and fallen to traps that were laid for him. How important is it for West Indies to have the best performing Andre Russell were he to have a role with the bat against this South African lineup?
Look, every batter in that lineup has a key role to play because if they're going to go with out Romario Shepherd again for the next game against South Africa, it means that they've gone slightly lighter from a batting perspective, something that would have given the top order the confidence with the depth of their batting. Now with Russell, he had a good innings to finish off the PNG game against Uganda. He had a really quick fire knock as well to pump up the West Indies total, and then I think a 14 against New Zealand. So he's played key roles in the first couple of games, failed in the last couple. But I think from 1 down to 9 of that West Indies batting order are going to have to be able to play freely in that big game against South Africa, not just Andre Russell.
All right, so that's the batting. Now, if we focus on the bowling, they went in with the bowling combination that you'd wanted them to field, with Obed McCoy getting a game. Now, let's break down the challenge of lining up to this South African batting lineup. And it begins with Quinton de Kock, who's hit a great run of form in the Super 8s. So who will you throw the ball to try and stop de Kock in this run of form?
Yeah, one of them, I'd still back Akil Hussain to try to do the job, at least for an over at the start, even to the left-handed Quinton de Kock. People will look at it as a positive matchup for de Kock, but I still think it's an option at least for one over. And then maybe we didn't see Obed McCoy with the new ball. Andre Russell started things out for the West Indies. But I like that new ball. I like the Alzari Joseph move. That's just me. So I don't know where they would go, but I'd go certainly for Akil Hussain for one, and maybe I could look at Obed McCoy as opposed to Andre Russell kicking it off.
Do you foresee a greater role in the power play for Roston Chase bowling to de Kock?
I think he can come in. Let's say de Kock gets off to a flyer. Roston Chase is certainly an option, and the reason he's an option is because he bowls a very good length. It's what the West Indies would look at as a matchup against the left-hander with the off-spin and the bounce of Roston Chase. So, look, I think he could have a part to play. I don't know if I will go with that straight away as a start.
Right. The one period or the one aspect of this game which just looks like from the outside could have a huge say in the outcome is the West Indian spinners who are in fine form against the South African middle order, which has no shortage of fire. How do you see that battle panning out?
The three spinners would be key. Akil Hussein, it's still a South African lineup that hasn't fired to its fullest potential. But the West Indies will have to match up with Quinton de Kock being a left-hander. You've got David Miller down there as well, and then you've got the right-handers. So the West Indies will have to be very clever with the use of Moti, Akil Hussein, and Ruston Chase, going partly on instinct and cricketing acumen, and partly seeing whether the matchups work, and then get your seamers, because South Africa like the pace coming on to the bat. But if there is anything in the pitch, then all your bowlers come into the fray.
All right. So if you were to pick one most notable matchup from a West Indian perspective, what would that be?
I want to see again Sheho played beautifully against the USA, so he will have a huge role to play, not just being aggressive, but maybe if he gets through the power play to bat deep, and Nicholas Puran will then be allowed to play with greater freedom and not feel that he has to carry the mantle of the innings by being conservative in the way that he bats. And I'm going to go with Alzari Joseph from a bowling perspective, who has gone a little bit hot and cold in the tournament, but I think he is a talisman and he gets things together for the West Indies.
All right, then. The stage is set. It promises to be an absolute cracker in Antigua with so much riding on it. Thank you so much, Ian Bishop, for your time.
Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.
वॉचो ऐप पे देखो एक OTT के दाम पे सारे OTT शान से